Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something huge, a topic that's, well, it's shaping everything, isn't it? Especially our health. Artificial intelligence in medicine. Now, you've probably seen it everywhere, right? This explosion of generative AI. Things like ChatGPT for text, or those tools making unbelievably realistic images. And this really sparked excitement, again, about what AI could do for healthcare. And this is important, that excitement, it comes with some pretty sobering warnings, serious stuff. Even the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, talked about horrific levels of death and destruction from AI being misused. So yeah, our mission today is to figure out how the medical world can actually navigate all this. How do we manage the challenges to really get to the benefits of AI in health? We've got some fascinating sources to unpack here, giving a really broad look.
You're absolutely right. And actually, it's important to remember AI in medicine isn't like brand new. We need to kind of distinguish here. There's the machine learning we've had for a while, doing specific tasks, and then there's this newer generative AI that everyone's talking about. They're different things. The non-generative AI, it actually has a pretty solid track record already. It's done some impressive things, especially with, say, interpreting medical images, like mammograms. There's this big randomized controlled trial recently published in The Lancet Oncology. It looked at AI helping with mammography screening. And what they found was really interesting. The AI, it spotted cancer at about the same rate as the human readers doing it alone. But, and this is key, it nearly halved the workload for reading those screens.
Halved it. Wow.
Yeah. Imagine the efficiency gain there.
That's huge.
Exactly. And it's not just imaging. We've seen progress in infectious diseases, in molecular medicine, even making diagnostic tools better for use out in the field, in remote places.
Okay, so that established AI, the non-generative kind, it's already delivering real results. Cutting workload, improving diagnostics.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the new stuff, the generative AI, it feels like we're much more in the realm of, well, speculation, potential. Is that a fair way to put it?
Well, largely, yes. The applications are still mostly speculative at this stage, though the potential is definitely there.
And when you start thinking about that potential, it's pretty powerful, like speeding up clinical research. Imagine automating evidence reviews or finding new drug candidates way faster than we can now. Or think about the doctors and nurses drowning in paperwork.
Yeah.
AI generating medical notes automatically. That could free them up to actually, see patients.
A major administrative relief, potentially.
Yeah. And we're seeing pushes for this, like the Gates Foundation's Global Grand Challenges. They're specifically looking for ways to use these large language models, LLMs, in lower-income countries, the LMICs.
That potential is definitely exciting. But as you flagged right at the start, these advances bring, well, serious risks, too. We have to talk about those. AI fundamentally works best on really well-defined, narrow tasks. It shines when it augments human judgment, helps out, rather than trying to completely replace it.
Right.
The trouble starts when you try to apply, say, generative AI to really messy, complex, heterogeneous data. And let's face it, medicine is full of that kind of data. That's where things get complicated.
Okay, so it's not a magic wand for everything.
Definitely not. And another big issue is what people call the black box problem. With many of these models, especially the complex ones, we don't actually know how they reach a conclusion. It's opaque.
We just get an answer, but not the reasoning.
Exactly, which makes it incredibly hard to assess if it's suitable, if we can trust it, or if it will work reliably for different types of patients or situations.
That sounds risky, especially in medicine. And does that black box issue get worse with these large language models, the LLMs? Are there specific dangers there?
Oh, absolutely. The sources really highlight this. LLMs can make subtle mistakes that humans might easily overlook. And worse, they can hallucinate.
Hallucinate, like make things up.
Invent non-existent sources, present false information as fact. Imagine that happening with medical advice or research.
Oh, wow. That's terrifying in a health context.
It really is. And beyond the accuracy issues, there's the whole privacy angle. We're talking about potentially huge amounts of personal health data being transferred to tech companies. Without strong regulations in place, well, patient privacy could be seriously compromised. Who's guarding that data?
Good question.
And then there's an issue that's maybe even more fundamental, health equity. This is a really serious concern flagged in the sources.
How does AI impact equity?
Well, AI models learn from the data they're trained on. And existing healthcare data, it often reflects existing biases. Biases in who gets care, how much is spent.
So the AI learns the existing unfairness.
Precisely. There was a stark example in the U.S. where an algorithm trained on healthcare spending data, actually made racial disparities in access to care worse.
Oh, no.
Because it learned that less money was historically spent on certain groups, and it basically recommended continuing that pattern. Plus, most health data currently comes from high-income countries.
Right.
So if you train models on that data and then try to use them elsewhere, in LMICs, for example, they might be completely inappropriate, biased. It could actually worsen historical injustices.
So accuracy, privacy, bias. These are huge hurdles.
And they all feed into one overarching risk: eroding patient trust. If people don't trust these systems or the healthcare using them, the whole thing falls apart.
Okay, so we see the incredible promise, but also these really, really significant dangers. It feels like a balancing act. Where do we go from here? How do we, try and make sure AI is a force for good in medicine?
Well, a huge piece has to be the scientific community itself.
Rigorous testing, right?
Absolutely. Rigorous testing, proper validation studies, and really importantly, ongoing monitoring after deployment.
It's not just plug and play.
Not at all. It needs constant checking and reevaluation.
And beyond the scientists, what about, governments and global bodies?
Global governance and collaboration are critical. The UN is actually putting together a high-level advisory body. The goal is to build capacity globally for AI that's trustworthy, safe, sustainable, and it's vital that health and medicine have a strong voice there.
Makes sense.
And the WHO is also working on this, partnering with groups like the International Digital Health and AI Research Collaborative. They're trying to boost involvement from LMICs specifically in governing AI in health safely and ethically. Think cross-border work, common guidelines.
That involvement from LMIC sounds crucial given the bias issue you mentioned.
It is, but there's a big challenge there too. Without serious investment in their own local infrastructure, their own research capacity, LMICs risk just becoming dependent on AI developed and likely owned by companies in the US and Europe.
And the cost could be prohibitive.
Exactly. Unless there are robust open access alternatives, cost could lock many places out, deepening inequalities again.
It really feels like the technology is just racing ahead way faster than any rules or guidance can keep up, which creates this kind of power imbalance, doesn't it, between the medical world and the big tech firms driving this.
That's a central tension, absolutely. And it's dangerous to let private companies have too much influence without oversight.
So regulation is key.
Urgent. The UN Secretary General himself urged the Security Council to push for transparency, accountability, oversight for AI. Regulators really need to step up, define rules for safety, privacy, ethics.
Are we seeing that happen anywhere?
Well, the EU's AI Act is a major step. It'll classify AI systems by risk. High-risk ones, like many in healthcare probably would be, will need assessment before approval and ongoing monitoring.
Okay, that sounds promising.
And the UK is hosting a big global summit on AI safety later this year. Regulation really needs to be front and center there.
But getting everyone on board, especially the companies making the tech, that can't be easy. You mentioned tech companies should be part of the conversation, but are they resistant?
There are definitely signs of pushback.
Yeah.
Our sources note that major players like Amazon, Google, even the big health record company Epic, they've objected to some proposed U.S. rules aimed at regulating AI in health tech.
So there's the conflict right there. Commercial interests bumping up against the need for transparency for patient safety.
And that's the core issue. If commercial interests win out over transparency and caution, patient well-being is at risk. And, as often happens, marginalized groups are likely to suffer the consequences first and worst.
It's a critical moment then.
It is. But, there is still time. We can still shape this. We can create the future we want here. AI really could bring huge benefits. And it's a big if. It's integrated carefully, thoughtfully. It really could change medical practice for the better, working alongside doctors as an aid, not trying to replace them.
Right. It's a tool, not a replacement. And doctors, well, they can't just ignore it, can they? Medical schools, training programs. They need to prepare people for this digitally augmented future.
Absolutely. Healthcare workers need the skills and understanding to work with these tools effectively and critically.
And it goes beyond the clinic, too.
Yes, it's a much broader responsibility. Policymakers, tech firms, health experts, governments, they all need to work together. And critically, they need to keep equity right at the heart of the conversation, not as an add-on later.
So, wrapping this up, what's the main takeaway from our sources? What's the most urgent thing?
I think the clearest message is the call for strong, stringent regulation.
That seems to be the foundation for everything else.
It feels like it. to safeguard patients, ensure fairness, and actually realize the positive potential. The medical community really needs to amplify that call.
So a lot to think about as this incredible power of AI in medicine keeps growing and these challenges become sharper. It makes you wonder, how do we strike that balance between pushing innovation forward and ensuring safety, equity, trust? What you, listening right now, think is the single most critical step we need to take? Something to mull over.